Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're talking about Metasploit, which you probably know is one of the most famous tools in all of cybersecurity. But here's the thing, we're not going to focus on the commands you run. Nope. We're going to get into the thinking you need to do before you ever type a single one. To really get this, let me tell you a quick story about a friend of mine. He was working through a beginner lab and he messages me totally thrilled because he got access in like less than 20 minutes. But his message, it had this really weird energy, kind of like someone who just won a game show but then immediately misplaced the giant check. He had the session, the hack was successful, but you could tell it felt, well, hollow. You see, he had just stumbled his way through what we'll call a lucky tunnel. He found a path that worked. He got from point A to point B, but he had absolutely no idea how he got there, why that specific path worked, or, and this is the important part, how he could ever do it again on purpose. It was just a fluke. And this whole experience, right, this feeling of getting access but having zero real understanding of how you did it, it is such a common and honestly a super frustrating moment for anyone who's learning this stuff. You've technically won the game, but you feel completely lost. And that right there is the heart of the problem. You're staring at that beautiful command prompt, but you can't answer the most basic questions, like why did this specific module work? What clue pointed me here? And maybe just as important, why did the other 10 things I tried completely fail? When success feels like a random accident, it doesn't feel like you're building a skill. It just feels like you got lucky. So the cycle of guessing and frustration, where does it come from? Well, it almost always begins with one specific and very common mistake. You're asking the wrong question from the very beginning. For so many of us starting out, this is the question. What's the magic command? What's the one thing I need to type to get in? The problem is, this question immediately puts you in a weak position. It actually encourages you to just guess randomly, to search frantically, and to hope you eventually stumble on the right answer. So the key here is to just throw that old question out the window. We need to completely reframe our approach. We need a much, much more powerful question to ask ourselves, and we need to ask it before we even think about opening the tool. Just look at the shift there. This new question moves the work from the computer to your brain. It stops being about finding some magic command and starts being about building a logical case, something based on actual evidence you can see. And when you start asking the right question, Metasploit totally changes. It's no longer a slot machine where you just keep pulling the lever, hoping for a jackpot. It becomes a tool that simply confirms a logical chain of reasoning that you've already built in your head. You're not guessing anymore. You're verifying a hypothesis. Okay, so this way of thinking, it actually builds into a really simple, repeatable framework for success. So instead of digging another lucky tunnel, we're going to learn how to draw an expert map. I want you to think of this map as an eligibility checklist. It's a series of questions you ask yourself to make sure you have a clear, evidence-based path before you even try to get access. It's all about your preparation. And this map is beautifully simple. It just follows 4 logical steps that build directly on top of each other, taking you all the way from your initial observation to the final verification. So let's break down what you're actually doing at each stage. It all starts with observation. You're just being a detective, gathering initial clues like open ports or software banners. From there, you narrow your focus based on what you see. Then, you match that specific evidence to a specific module. And only then, at the very end, do you verify that your theory was correct. When you put these two mindsets side by side, wow, the difference is just night and day. The tunnel approach, it feels fast at first, but then you immediately get stuck and start guessing. The map, on the other hand, it feels a little slower up front because you're being methodical, but it gets you to the goal way faster in the end because there's no panic. Success completely shifts from being a happy accident to being the expected confirmation of your awesome detective work. So what this all leads to is that the real goal of any training lab, any practice at all, it isn't just about getting that session or seeing a command prompt. The real goal is something way deeper. This gives us a whole new definition of success. True success is verified access. It's explainable, meaning you can tell someone exactly how you got there step by step, and it's repeatable. You can do it again because it was based on logic, not on luck. So let's go back to my friend's story. Once we reconstructed his steps and he saw the single piece of evidence that should have been his guide the whole time, everything just clicked. The whole lab changed shape in his mind.
And he put it perfectly. He said, it stopped being a lucky tunnel and became a map.
And that, right there, is the single most important rule to remember from all of this. Your brain does the heavy lifting first. You build the case, you follow the evidence, you draw your map. The tool just confirms your work. Metasploit always comes after you can explain the path, never before. So I'm going to leave you with this. The next time you sit down to practice, just ask yourself this one question. Am I just digging a tunnel and hoping for the best, or am I drawing a map?